we are decoding the kind of assembly election results that we've got from Haryana and Jammu and Kashmir. It certainly raises a lot of significant questions. For one, will the BJP's victory that we are seeing in Haryana, is that going to have a cascading effect on the upcoming elections, the assembly elections of Maharashtra and Delhi? What really went wrong for the Congress party when it comes to Haryana? Has its caste card failed miserably? Has the constitution card failed for the Congress party? And what about the promise of monthly cash in hand? These are some of the big questions we're asking today, and this even as the political parties compete to dole out freebies in election time. The Prime Minister has said that today's victory, and he was specifically referring to the victory in Haryana, he said is the victory of development politics. And perhaps we've seen the stock markets react. They've broken that 6-day losing streak. Is this the reason why? Let's find out what famed economist, journalist, columnist, and consulting editor at ET Now, Swaminathan Aiyar, makes of all of this. Mr. Aiyar, always a pleasure getting in your perspective, and thank you for making the time for joining us on ET Now. You know, in that victory speech, I was just telling our viewers, the Prime Minister says that they've got a hat trick in Haryana because of good governance and development. Do you agree with him?
I think that must be the case. When you consider what a big upset it is, and you say, what else could it be? And the answer is, I don't think it can be anything else. Exit polls are, of course, notoriously inaccurate. But this particular one, um, the reason why I think it's taken us by surprise is that till now, almost in every case, the BJP would do better in a state in a national election than in the state's own election. Something called the Modi effect. That if Modi's position was at stake, the BJP did better. And this has turned that particular theory on its head. Because in the general election, the BJP did much worse. It only won half the seats. Here it's won more than half the seats. And it has been, therefore, an extremely good performance, extremely heartening for the BJP. There was a possible scenario where after the setback in the general election, the BJP would lose state elections 5 in a row. There was a chance it might lose in Kashmir, Haryana, in Delhi, in Madhya Pradesh, in Maharashtra and Jharkhand. Now it's very clear that the BJP is very much in contention. The BJP is not on the back foot. And I think in particular, the Maharashtra election now, there will be a sudden new amount of wind in the sails of the BJP out there. Till now, the Congress, I think, was pretty confident that their combination would win in Maharashtra. Now, I don't think that is quite so certain. Let us see. Yes. I mean, you can argue, can you really say that in Haryana has developed what Maharashtra has not developed? If there's development, there has been development in a number of places. And if it did not help the BJP in the national election, why should it really? Was there something so exceptional in Haryana in the state level? It would be difficult to argue that. But the fact is that they have won. And it would be very clear that there is a certain lack of credibility of the Congress leaders in Haryana. They've been out of power for some time and will be out of power for 5 years more.
Mr. Aiyar, in the assembly elections of Haryana at least, you know, to some extent, if we delve deeper into some of the reasons why BJP's performance, you know, has been contrary to popular perception, at least after the general elections, there was this toss-up, Mr. Aiyar. It seemed to be catering to food consumers or food producers, whether to appease the common man or the farmer. You can get the common man to vote for you if you reduce prices of daily commodities, but any cut on those prices would almost most likely impact the take-home of farmers. So do the election results of Haryana prove that the BJP has done well in convincing farmers that the party is on their side, having got that constituency on their side? Is that an important piece in the Haryana election results?
You know, you have to contrast the fact that just a few months ago, they suffered a very, very big defeat in Haryana.
Yes.
It was the same party. The objective conditions of the economy have not got transformed in these few months. So when the BJP had such a serious defeat in the general election, the question arises, why has it done so well in the state election? I don't think it can be a generalized issue on issues of food price development. I suspect it is because of local factors. I suspect that the BJP choice of candidates must have been much better than the Congress choice of candidates. I think perhaps the organizational impetus must have been better for the BJP. You will find that the Congress is so stunned that Jairam Ramesh says we cannot accept these results, and there might have been tampering of the electronic voting machines in some areas. I mean, that is the kind of objection that every loser comes out with. So, as of now, I see no reason to take that seriously. But I would simply say that, yes, I think, there must have been something very local and very strong about the BJP. Part of it must have been the choice of candidates. Um, I think also there is a question of the spread of the votes. As a share of the popular vote, the Congress did slightly better than the BJP. And yet, in terms of seats, it did much worse. So it's a question of, the spread effect of how your votes were spread over. It would be interesting to do a micro analysis to try and see whether it is consistent and the fact that the Congress had this edge in the popular vote. Why was it? Maybe it got translated more in the case of the general election than in the state election. But as I said, on general economic terms, it would be very difficult to explain why the BJP has done so much better this time.
Well, that's
Because
exactly
only a
why we
few
are turning
months
to
ago
you,
it did so
because we are
bad.
trying to make sense of what we are seeing by way of these election results. Also, it is being said, Mr. Aiyar, that BJP's Haryana victory signals continuity when it comes to economic policy overall. And therefore, we've seen the markets, especially the PSU stocks, they've done well for themselves today. In fact, I read a newspaper headline that said, Modi stocks rise in revenge mode as BJP scores a hat-trick in Haryana. Let me just bring in my colleague Ansh at this point, Mr. Aiyar, to tell us about the rally that we've seen in PSU stocks. And mind you, the markets have literally stopped that slide today. And we've seen PSU stocks really take the markets up as well. Ansh, tell us exactly what happened on that count.
Well, POC stocks, especially railway and defense sector, saw notable gains today, emerging as top performers. RVNL led the charge, rallying by around 8%, while Hutco followed the gains with around 7%. Other stocks as well, like PFC, REC, IRCON, HAL, BEL, Masgor Dock, and Cochin Shipyard, rose between 4 to 6%. Now, this momentum appears driven by BJP's strong lead in Haryana elections, suggesting sentiment-based buying. However, past instances remind us that such rallies may not sustain always, because the stocks have always previously surged on sentiment only to correct afterwards. So in short, without strong fundamental support, these gains might be short-lived.
Thanks for that, Ansh. Mr. Aiyar, what do you make of this? Because the PSU stocks have risen today, the markets have done a U-turn. And as far as Haryana results are concerned, many market veterans we've been speaking to are talking about continuity of policy, that they've been assured after the general elections that there is going to be that. And you did allude to that, that these results perhaps in some way reassure that they are still in contention, the BJP. What do you make of what we've seen on the PSU front and policy continuity?
I think it would be, in fact, very amusing to say that the strength of the public sector is what Modi represents. Modi has, in fact, attempted to represent liberalization of the economy, getting new entrepreneurs, many, many more people. Uh, Again, does once, so I mean, I will not claim that we can explain one single day's movement by a single political event in this particular fashion. But yes, I mean, perhaps the public sector stocks had lost a little ground in the last month or two, and they were looking for some reason to come up, and they seem to have found a reason right now. I mean, I would not say that the market in general was worried about the future of the BJP. That would be wrong. I mean, the market, BJP had come back for a third time in a row, done by post 1991 standards, perfectly well in the general election. So I don't think there was any fear that the BJP is going to go out of power, and now we are clear that the BJP is in power. The BJP will be happy with its victory in Haryana, but it did not do that well in Kashmir. And I would say that at the end of it all, both Congress and the BJP have something to cheer. I would not think that the public sector would be regarded as some particular sector that will do very well under Modi and badly under Congress. I would not accept that particular line of analysis.
Mr. Aiyar, I was looking at their election manifestos, both the Congress and the BJP, ahead of the assembly polls. Of course, the BJP and Congress, both of them committed to monetary assistance, more than 2,000 rupees monthly to all women in the state. That was one promise. This expenditure would approximately make up 1.7% of the state's FY25 GDP. With the kind of debt, I was just wondering, with the kind of debt that Haryana has at this point, we're not sure how sustainable a scheme like this would be. So would you say that there were fears of populist measures that the BJP would have to bring in case these assembly elections were not won, or perhaps just after the general elections, there was that expectation? Do you think those fears were unfounded, Mr. Aiyar?
Populism is part of democracy. It cannot be wished away. I think Modi's strength has been that he has taken the Congress's best schemes, some of which were called populist at the time. He has made them even better. I mean, if you remember, it was the Congress party that brought in this food at only 3 and 2 rupees a kilo, and Modi has made it completely free. And he has managed to do all that even while managing the fisc quite well. In sum, various populist policies, various giveaways, various schemes for women, for small scale people, for various sectors, all of those are going to continue. But the political economy appears to be such that we are able to keep populist giveaways within reasonable limits. And as a result, the economy has gone forward both under Congress and under BJP, despite a profusion of freebies of one kind or the other. I think Jayalalitha was once quoted as the ultimate case. She had 47 different forms of freebies for various sectors, and yet Tamil Nadu managed to do perfectly well. So perhaps Indian politicians have mastered the art of appearing to give away more and more, and yet managed to keep it within, I would say, about 2% of GDP. And if you are able to do that, that is manageable. And that is, in fact, a function of democracy. Democracy is supposed to achieve a situation where, on the one hand, you have good growth, and on the other hand, the benefits of growth must be shared with the poorer and the disadvantaged sections. And if that is achieved by populist schemes, that is part of a good democratic result, provided it does not go overboard. And it would appear in India we do not go overboard.
Populism being intrinsic to Indian democracy, for one, and we've seen it in different measures in different parts of the country by different state governments, by the central government as well. But now, while state election results, like you pointed out, they're not quite the needle movers for the markets or the economy. There are certain exceptional states like Uttar Pradesh or Maharashtra. Now, Maharashtra goes into elections later this year. Do you sense that that election is going to be based more on economic rather than political issues? Because as we realize, there are certain very local issues, as have been playing out in the case of Haryana. How different do you think it's going to be in Maharashtra?
Yes, I think the local factors again will become very important. I think that's one thing that has come out of the Haryana case. And the idea that there is one single trend which would be followed regardless, I think that is not the case. So I think a lot of attention will have to be paid in Maharashtra. Now, the BJP there has the problem that it has to accommodate a number of partners. Will it be able to accommodate those partners and get its cadres to work for them with the same enthusiasm that they would have worked for the BJP alone in Haryana? So we cannot take that for granted. Secondly, I would say Thackeray, Uday Thackeray has the name of the Shiv Sena. I mean, officially, You may say Eknath Shinde is recognized by the Election Commission, but as far as the general population is concerned, I think, Thackeray's family is the one that people associate with the Shiv Sena. I would say that the Congress Shiv Sena combine would still be the favorites even after this election, because I think the BJP having to accommodate some parties which are basically don't have good roots. Ajit Pawar's breakaway faction and Eknath Shinde's breakaway faction, they do not have any good deep roots in local politics, and yet they will have to be accommodated in terms of seats. So I think this is a disadvantage they are going to have. In broader terms, in terms of freebies and giveaways, I mean, there would be the usual competition. But as I said, given the fact that the NDA did that badly in the general election, will it be able to turn around and do very much better in the coming state election? The Haryana example will give the BJP heart and said, yes, we can do it, we can turn this around. I would merely say the objective conditions are more difficult in Maharashtra than they were in Haryana. So I would still say Congress, Shiv Sena combine to have the be favorites there.
And that really also begs the question whether it's going to give the Congress's allies an upper hand when it comes to really getting a lion's share of the seats that they want to contend on together. And that's something that we'll be watching out for. But Mr. Aiyar, before I let you go, I also wanted to ask you something else that is concerning the markets. Now that China has brought in its stimulus measures, the surge that we are seeing on the Shanghai, the Hang Seng indices, they seem to be coming at the cost of FII holdings in Indian equities. Do you think the FIIs will continue to pull out, considering that the American economy is also looking rather robust, looking at the employment numbers?
Yes, I mean, this is something I think I mentioned on previous occasions that, really it's time to sell India and buy China. And that indeed has turned out to be the case. I cannot claim to have followed the advice myself, but that the people who did that certainly turned out to do very well. The question then arises, has the Chinese upsurge reached a peak and will it reduce anytime soon? I don't think so. There is still, I think, a lot of steam behind the Chinese recovery. Their markets really got beaten down. Their valuations really went to absolute very low levels. So will people continue to invest? Will China continue to do well? I think yes, at least for some time. I mean, it may settle down after. Let us see what the next rounds of economic figures are. But yes, the Chinese valuations, I would say, are still attractive compared with Indian valuations. To that extent, if there are equity allocations between those two countries, I would definitely expect that a certain amount of money would go into the idea of sell India, buy China. Very much so, even now.
A little bit of trepidation among retail investors for the least, because they're the ones who've been most excited about the upsurge in the Indian markets. Mr. Aiyar, it's always very interesting and rewarding having a conversation with you, and tonight's been no different. Thank you so much for joining us with your perspective on the assembly elections of Haryana and Jammu and Kashmir and the way the markets and the economy could get impacted.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.